Inside ADX Florence, the walls of silence. Subscribe if you dare. Because once you enter this prison, there's no coming back. Like, comment, and join the family that stares into the darkest corners of justice, where the walls themselves remember every scream. The story begins not in the daylight, but in the glare of police floodlights cutting through the Colorado desert night. Dust swirls in the wind, and a convoy of armored SUVs snakes its way down a narrow service road. Inside the lead vehicle sits a man in shackles so heavy they cut into his wrists, his eyes cold but unblinking. His name has been plastered across headlines for months, whispered in courtrooms, cursed by victims' families, and studied by agents who have trailed his every move. Now he is being delivered to the last stop of his life, the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX Florence. Built in 1994, ADX has earned nicknames that sound more like nightmares than institutions. The Alcatraz of the Rockies, the end of the line, a clean version of hell. It was designed to hold the most violent, the most notorious, and the most unbreakable criminals in America. From terrorists to cartel bosses to traitors who once wore the nation's uniform, the roster reads like the darkest chapter of a country's sins. Tonight, the convoy carries a man authorities claim is unlike the rest. His crimes don't just live in headlines, they still bleed in unsolved files. Some say locking him away will protect the public. Others whisper that his knowledge could still tear open wounds long thought closed. The desert wind howls. Guards in tactical armor fan out across the entrance, rifles at the ready. No escape attempt has ever succeeded here. No inmate has ever walked free once the steel doors closed behind them. For many inside, parole is just a word that died in the courtroom. The walls are concrete. The windows are slits. The cells are boxes of solitude where a human voice can vanish into silence. As the armored SUV halts, the man is dragged out, his chains echoing on the ground like a morbid drumbeat. He doesn't resist, doesn't blink. He stares at the building before him, a fortress squatting in the desert, indifferent and immovable. But this story isn't about a single prisoner. It's about what happens when men like him are locked together inside a machine built to strip away humanity. It's about the secrets that seep through cracks no wall can contain. And it begins here with a body discovered in one of ADX's most secure cell blocks. The discovery comes not in chaos but in routine. A correctional officer named Daniel Price, 12 years into his service, pushes his cart down a narrow corridor at 6:30 a.m. The lights hum overhead, sterile and unflinching. Every door he passes has a slit barely wide enough to pass a tray of food. Behind one of those doors lies a prisoner who hasn't responded to morning checks. At first, Daniel assumes it's the usual silence. Some men never speak, their voices corroded by years of solitary. But when he slides the tray through, there is no movement. No hand reaching out, no eyes glaring back. Just stillness. Too much stillness. He calls for backup, and within minutes, the door is unlocked under tight procedure. What they find sends a ripple through the entire prison. The inmate, a former gang leader with a reputation for brutality, is dead. But it's not suicide. Not the usual slow fade of despair. His body is staged in a way that makes no sense in a solitary cell. His wrists bear bruises shaped like hands, though he was locked alone. His mouth is gagged with strips of his own bedsheet, tied in knots no prisoner should be able to make while shackled by isolation. The death sparks a lockdown. Sirens scream. Doors slam. The prison, already a tomb of silence, now vibrates with tension. Inmates pound on their steel doors, some in protest, others in celebration. Because in a place where every man is supposed to be isolated, the question spreads like wildfire: how did someone kill him without opening his door? The FBI is called in. ADX doesn't like outside attention, but this isn't the kind of case they can bury in paperwork. The dead man, Hector Ruiz, wasn't just another violent inmate. He had connections to cases still under investigation. Prosecutors had been hoping to flip him for information on cartel operations that stretched from Juarez to Miami. Now that leverage is gone. Special Agent Sarah Klein takes the case. She's sharp, unflinching, and known for never letting a detail slip past her. To her, the prison itself feels less like a building and more like a labyrinth designed to mock outsiders. Every door requires clearance. Every corridor feels identical. Every sound echoes just enough to disorient. She starts with the autopsy report, which confirms what the officers suspected: Ruiz was murdered. But the medical examiner adds something chilling. The bruises on his wrists and neck suggest the killer wasn't just strong, they were methodical, controlled, almost surgical. Whoever did this had time. But time is the one thing ADX never gives. Inmates are allowed out of their cells for only 1 hour a day, always under watch, always alone. Their food is delivered through slots. Their showers are scheduled. Their recreation is in cages separated by steel mesh. There are no blind spots, or at least that's what the prison claims. Klein requests security footage. What she sees is both frustrating and terrifying. Nothing. The cameras show Ruiz alone in his cell, pacing, lying down, standing, then nothing. At the time of death, the footage cuts to static for 3 minutes, then resumes with Ruiz already dead. When Klein confronts the prison's warden, Thomas Grady, his jaw tightens. He insists it's a technical glitch, nothing more. But Klein has worked too many cases to believe in coincidences. 3 minutes of static, during the exact moment a high-value inmate is murdered in a solitary cell? That's no glitch. That's sabotage. As the investigation deepens, whispers spread. Inmates send coded messages scratched into soap bars, smuggled between recreation cages. Guards talk in low voices, afraid of being overheard. The narrative forming is dangerous. Someone inside ADX has found a way to reach beyond the walls of their cell. Klein interviews neighboring prisoners, each one locked behind a steel door with a slit of glass no wider than a finger. Most stay silent, suspicious of her badge, fearful of retaliation. But one finally leans close to the slit, his voice hoarse from disuse. He wasn't alone, the inmate rasps. They never are. Not in here. Klein presses him for details, but he refuses to say more. Just before the guard pulls her away, he whispers one last word that chills her: brotherhood. It's a term with too many meanings in prison. It could mean loyalty between inmates, it could mean the Aryan Brotherhood, it could mean a secret pact. But in ADX, every word is heavy. Every word carries weight. The official story the warden wants to release is simple. Ruiz killed himself, case closed. But Klein refuses to sign off. Too many inconsistencies. Too many silences that feel orchestrated. She digs into Ruiz's background, his alliances, his enemies. What she finds paints a target on her own back. Ruiz wasn't just connected to cartels, he was connected to a secret communication network rumored to exist inside ADX. Despite the walls, the isolation, and the constant surveillance, certain inmates were believed to be trading messages. Not with guards, not with smuggled phones, but through the very infrastructure of the prison itself. And if that's true, then Ruiz's death wasn't an isolated act. It was a warning. One night, after 12 hours in the warden's office combing through redacted reports, Klein steps outside for air. The desert is freezing, the stars sharp against the black sky. A guard smoking by the gate approaches her quietly. His name tag reads Miller, his face worn by years of this place. "You should walk away," he says without looking at her. "This place doesn't let outsiders dig too deep." Klein asks what he means, but Miller just drops his cigarette, crushes it under his boot and mutters, "Ruiz isn't the first. And he won't be the last." The next morning, a package arrives at the FBI field office in Denver. No return address, no fingerprints. Inside is a single VHS tape. When Klein plays it, the screen fills with the grainy interior of a prison cell. Not just any cell, the exact cell Ruiz died in. The angle is different from the official footage, like a hidden camera the prison never admitted existed. The tape shows Ruiz pacing, then freezing as the sound of his steel door unlocking echoes. The door creaks open, though no officer appears. Ruiz backs away, shouting something inaudible. A shadow enters the cell. The screen flickers, then goes dark. When it comes back, Ruiz is already on the floor, gagged, bound, and motionless. The shadow steps closer to the hidden camera. A hand reaches out, covers the lens, and the tape ends. Klein stares at the blank screen, her heart racing. Whoever sent this knew the official narrative was a lie. Whoever filmed this had access no inmate should ever have. But the worst part isn't what the tape shows. It's what it doesn't. Because just before the lens is covered, the faint outline of a tattoo flashes across the attacker's wrist. Not a gang insignia, not cartel ink. Something far more dangerous inside these walls, the mark of a prison guard. And with that, the investigation shifts. This isn't just a prison murder. This is a conspiracy. Because if a guard killed Ruiz, it means the fortress of ADX Florence is not unbreakable. It means the very people sworn to control the prison may be its darkest threat. The prison within the prison. The tape was now evidence, sealed in a steel case, but its images wouldn't leave Agent Sarah Klein's mind. Every frame haunted her, the unexplainable unlocking of the cell door, the shadowy figure stepping inside, and that fleeting tattoo. She had seen it before. Not in a gang file. Not in a cartel dossier. She had seen it at roll call on the wrist of a correctional officer sworn to keep this fortress impenetrable. The idea alone threatened to collapse the very myth of ADX Florence. If guards were complicit, then the prison was not a fortress at all. It was a stage, and the actors were playing by rules the public never knew existed. The warden, Thomas Grady, denied everything. "Impossible," he snapped, his face red with anger as Klein laid the Vita still frame on his desk. "Our officers are vetted. Every door is electronically logged. No one steps into a cell without leaving a trail." But the trail was missing. The access logs for Ruiz's corridor were spotless. No anomalies, no doors opened at the time of death. According to the system, Ruiz had been alone in his cell all night. Yet the tape showed otherwise. "That means your system was altered," Klein countered, her voice cold. "Or worse, you're protecting someone." Grady leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You're walking on dangerous ground, Agent. ADX doesn't like to be second-guessed." But she wasn't second-guessing. She was staring straight into the abyss of corruption. She returned to Denver with more questions than answers. Her team dug deeper into staff records, focusing on officers assigned to Ruiz's block. One name surfaced again and again: Officer Michael Stone. A veteran with nearly 2 decades inside ADX, Stone's file looked clean, almost too clean. No disciplinary marks, no complaints, no transfers. But buried in old internal memos, Klein found whispers: unusual inmate cooperation during his shifts, unexplained gaps in surveillance reviews, and one note that chilled her: reportedly close with Brotherhood contacts. That word again. Brotherhood. Stone wasn't just any officer. He was respected, even feared. Guards trusted him. Inmates feared him. He walked the line between enforcer and mediator, someone who could calm a riot with a look or stoke tensions with a whisper. And now, with Ruiz dead, Klein suspected he had crossed a line no officer should ever cross. But she needed proof. And in ADX, proof is a commodity guarded tighter than gold. She arranged for a quiet interview with guard Miller, the same man who had warned her to walk away outside the gate. Inside a small diner off Highway 50, Miller looked nervous, his eyes darting to every patron as if one of them might be listening. "You don't know what you're digging into," he muttered. "Stone's not just a guard. He's got connections outside. Cartels, gangs, maybe even agencies I don't want to name." Ruiz wasn't the first inmate silenced. He was just the first they couldn't explain away cleanly. Klein pushed a recorder closer to him. "Then give me names. Give me something I can use." Miller shook his head. "Names will get me killed. But I'll tell you this, there's a prison inside the prison. A system the public never sees. Certain inmates aren't locked down like the rest. They move, they trade, they communicate, because guards like Stone make it happen. It's all off the books. And Ruiz crossed someone in that system." "A prison within the prison," Klein repeated. The phrase felt heavy, dangerous. Miller stood abruptly, leaving his coffee untouched. "I've said too much. Don't call me again." Back at headquarters, Klein laid out her findings to her team. Ruiz's murder wasn't random. It was an execution ordered from within ADX's shadow system. But who gave the order, and why, remained buried in silence. Her only lead was Stone. So she pulled his financials, his communications, his travel records. For years, everything was spotless. No debts, no unusual spending, no offshore accounts. Until 2 months before Ruiz's death. That's when Stone made a series of unexplained cash deposits, totaling nearly $200,000. The source was masked through layered accounts, but Klein's analysts traced the threads back to one origin: a front company tied to cartel money laundering. Stone was compromised. She confronted Grady again, slamming the bank records on his desk. The warden barely glanced at them. "You think I don't know?" he said, his voice low, almost weary. "Stone's untouchable. He has people protecting him, people outside my reach. If you push this, you'll find yourself cut out, or worse." Klein stared at him, stunned. "You knew. And you let him keep walking these halls." Grady's silence was answer enough. The deeper she dug, the more dangerous the ground became. Her phone buzzed with anonymous threats. A car tailed her late at night. Once, returning to her apartment, she found her door unlocked, though nothing was missing. A message clear as day: "We're watching." But she didn't back down. If Stone was running a covert network inside ADX, then Ruiz's murder was just the beginning. Her break came when an inmate, serving life for multiple homicides, asked to speak with her. His name was Marcus "Red" Taylor, a former lieutenant in a prison gang who had survived years in the SHU. His eyes were hollow, his voice gravel, but his words cut deep. "You're chasing Stone," he said through the glass of the interview room. "Smart. But you'll never catch him head-on. He's got too many layers. Too many guards in his pocket. But you want proof? Then look for the ledger." "The ledger?" Klein asked. Red nodded. "Every deal, every order, every payout runs through him. But he doesn't keep it digital. Too risky. He writes it down. Old school. A notebook, black cover, kept where no one dares look." "Where?" Red leaned closer, his voice dropping. "The chapel." The prison chapel was one of the few places inmates could gather, under heavy watch. To most, it was a place of quiet, of fragile hope. But if Stone used it as cover for his operations, it was the perfect hiding spot. Guards never searched it too closely, and its walls carried shadows deep enough to conceal anything. Klein couldn't storm the chapel without exposing her hand. She needed subtlety. So she recruited an undercover ally, an officer named James O'Connor, young, idealistic, not yet broken by ADX's weight. His record was clean, his loyalty untested. Klein gave him a single mission: find the ledger. Weeks passed in silence. Klein burned with frustration, fearing Stone was too careful, too protected. But then one night O'Connor appeared in her Denver office, his face pale, his hands trembling. He placed a small black notebook on her desk. "This is it," he whispered. Klein opened the cover. Inside, written in precise block letters, were names, dates, payments, and codes. She flipped through page after page of transactions. Smuggled goods, arranged accidents, and payouts to both inmates and guards. Ruiz's name appeared twice. The last entry, dated 2 days before his death, was chilling in its simplicity. "Silence him. Paid in full." It was the smoking gun. But before she could act, the storm broke. The next morning, O'Connor was found dead in his apartment. Staged as a suicide, but Klein knew better. The message was clear. Stone knew. And now the ledger wasn't just evidence, it was a death sentence. Klein secured it under FBI custody, but she could feel the walls closing in. Stone still walked free inside ADX, shielded by allies and silence. Every day he stayed in uniform was another day the conspiracy dug deeper. And then came the message. Delivered not by phone, not by email, but slipped into her car seat as she left headquarters. A single sheet of paper, typed in bold letters. "Drop the case or you'll end up like Ruiz. This is your only warning." Klein stared at the note, her hands trembling but her resolve hardening. She had seen enough death to know when fear was the enemy's weapon. And fear was not an option. But the stakes had shifted. It wasn't just about Ruiz anymore. It wasn't just about Stone. It was about exposing the hidden system inside ADX Florence. A prison within the prison built not of steel and concrete, but of corruption, silence, and betrayal. And if she failed, the next body could be hers. Breaking the silence. The notebook sat inside an FBI evidence vault, guarded, catalogued, untouchable. Yet Agent Sarah Klein knew it was only safe in theory. In reality, evidence had a way of vanishing when the wrong names were written in it. And the ledger contained names that could shatter not just ADX Florence, but entire chains of command. Cartel operatives. Known gang lieutenants. Guards sworn to uphold the law. And in one chilling entry, government contractors whose presence had never been acknowledged inside the prison walls. The deeper she read, the clearer the picture became. ADX wasn't merely a fortress. It was a hub. A hidden marketplace where silence, loyalty, and betrayal were traded like currency. Ruiz had been silenced because he threatened to tip the balance. Now, Klein herself carried that same threat. Inside the prison, Officer Michael Stone carried himself with the same calm confidence he always had. His wrist tattoo, barely visible under his sleeve, now burned in Klein's mind like a signature. He walked the corridors as if they belonged to him, as if the walls themselves were complicit in his secrets. But whispers were spreading. The inmates knew something had shifted. Guards were tense, conversations clipped. Rumors about the ledger had leaked, and with them came fear. Fear that the entire shadow system would collapse if Klein brought it into the light. And fear, in a place like ADX, could spark violence faster than gasoline catching flame. Klein pressed for Stone's arrest, but her superiors balked. "We don't have enough," her section chief argued. "Circumstantial evidence, a ledger that could have been fabricated, an anonymous tape. You push this and it all crumbles in court." She clenched her fists. "Then what do you suggest? Let him keep killing? Let the prison rot from the inside out?" The chief's silence was her answer. She realized then what she had always suspected. No one wanted ADX's secrets fully exposed. The prison was too valuable as a myth, too powerful as a symbol of control. To admit corruption ran through its veins would shatter public trust. If she wanted justice, she would have to force it. Her opportunity came with blood. 2 weeks later, an inmate in the special housing unit was found dead, his throat slit with a sharpened toothbrush. Another isolated incident, according to the official report. But Klein saw the pattern. This inmate's name was also in the ledger. The message was clear: Stone's system wasn't slowing down. It was escalating. She arranged one final meeting with guard Miller, the reluctant whistleblower. They met again at the roadside diner, its neon sign buzzing faintly in the night. Miller's hands shook as he stirred his coffee. "You don't understand," he said. "Stone isn't just one man. He's a gatekeeper. Take him out and 10 more rise in his place." Klein leaned in. "Then tell me where it ends." Miller's eyes flickered with something between fear and resignation. "It ends when you prove he's running it from inside these walls. Not just through whispers or ledgers but in real time. Catch him in the act." "How?" He slid a small device across the table. "A body cam, stripped down, easily concealed. You won't get another chance. But if you want proof, put someone on the inside." Klein froze. Inside ADX. A place designed to keep men locked away from the world. The idea was madness. But so was letting Stone continue. The plan was reckless, dangerous, maybe even suicidal. But Klein had a contact who could make it happen. A federal informant facing a long sentence who was willing to trade risk for protection. His name was Damon Cross, a former enforcer with ties to multiple gangs. Hard, dangerous, but smart enough to survive. With careful strings pulled through the Bureau and the Bureau of Prisons, Cross was quietly transferred to ADX under a false identity. No one, not even Stone, knew who he really was. His mission was simple: where the hidden cam, infiltrate the shadow network and bring back undeniable proof. For weeks nothing came. Cross's messages were limited to vague signals passed during legal visits. But then one night Klein received a secure transmission. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Stone meeting with inmates in the recreation cages, passing coded notes, issuing orders. The myth was shattered. Stone wasn't just complicit, he was orchestrating it all. And then, near the end of the tape, Stone turned directly toward the hidden camera, his eyes locking with the lens as if he knew. His lips curled into the faintest smile. The feed cut out. Cross never contacted them again. The Bureau scrambled. Stone was untouchable in the courtroom, but if word got out that a federal informant vanished under his watch, the scandal would explode. Klein demanded immediate action. At last, under mounting pressure, the Department of Justice authorized an arrest warrant. The raid was set for dawn. The morning was cold, the desert sky pale with first light. Federal agents swept through ADX's corridors, their boots pounding against concrete. Klein led the charge, adrenaline burning through her veins. They reached the officer's wing, storming into Stone's quarters. But the room was empty. His uniform hung neatly on a chair. His badge lay on the desk. And taped to the wall above it was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in block letters. "You can't cage a ghost." A manhunt erupted, but Stone was gone. No alarms triggered, no cameras caught his escape. It was as if he had dissolved into the very walls. The Bureau tried to contain the fallout, but whispers spread fast. If a guard could vanish from the most secure prison in America, what did that mean for the myth of ADX Florence? Klein pushed for continued investigation, but resistance grew stronger. Files went missing. Leads went cold. The ledger itself disappeared from the evidence vault under unexplained circumstances. And then came the final twist of the knife. 3 months later, another body surfaced. Not inside ADX, but in a quiet suburb outside Denver. The victim was guard Miller, the man who had risked everything to warn her. His death was staged as a robbery, but the precision told Klein otherwise. On his wrist, carved into the flesh, was a symbol she knew all too well, the same tattoo Stone bore. The case officially ended there. No arrests, no convictions. The official story remained: ADX Florence was secure, its inmates locked in silence, its walls unbreachable. But Klein knew the truth. She knew Stone was still out there. That the prison within the prison hadn't died, it had simply gone deeper underground. And every time she closed her eyes she saw his smile, staring straight into the hidden camera, as if promising he would never truly be caught. The story of ADX Florence remains one of walls, silence, and control. But inside those walls, a darker truth lingers. Sometimes the most dangerous men aren't the ones locked behind steel doors. Sometimes they wear the keys. And the question that haunted Klein: and still haunts those who dare to whisper about ADX, is this. If the Alcatraz of the Rockies can be breached from within, where is anyone truly safe? If you thought this story was intense, the next one will shake you even deeper. Subscribe, hit like, and stay tuned, because the darkest truths are the ones we're not supposed to know.